and go, we're live.
Yes,
Good.
once more.
Once more, I actually have to, now that we're recording this, I realize that I need to produce the episode we we just did with Talia. So if you're listening to this, you probably already listened to the Talia episode. So it means I did well. Good job, Julian.
Maybe we should not open the curtains to how our backstage process works, because people are just going to be overwhelmed by the professionalism that we exhibit.
What was the word we used to use? Scintillating.
Yeah, it's just
Simple.
getting better or worse by the every single episode. You can decide if it's better or worse.
I like it. I think this
Yeah,
is a
it's good.
mature podcast. This is a mature podcast. It's like we don't have time to do LinkedIn carousels and videos and bits. Just kind of come and hear the real shit. You
Yep.
know, that's it. That's what we do. It's just how we roll.
Yep.
But there's a lot of shit that has happened in the past 7 to 8 days.
Well,
I
let's
mean,
start with the funny one. Let's start with the funny one.
the Google Data Studio one.
Yes. Oh, I really thought that it was an April Fool's joke. I really did.
It was not.
So Data Studio was rebranded to Looker Studio, like what, in 2022?
Yeah,
And now it's back to Data Studio.
exactly. Looker's Data Studio, Google Data Studio, formerly known as Looker Studio, formerly known as Google
Yeah.
Data Studio.
Which, okay, so
I'm not mad at it, to be honest,
no,
because
no,
I
no, no.
never
It's
told
it's
it.
it's it's actually pretty impressive that Google can do this with a straight face. And they're probably one of the only companies who could do this, and they probably accept that people are going to be laughing at it. But in the long run, I mean, it just, you have to admit that it makes sense, because it was never a Looker tool like Data Studio. It
No,
was never a Looker. Looker is established as a BI, data modeling, super enterprisey, super
exactly.
secure, all these different controls that an enterprise expects for a BI tool, and Data Studio is
If
for
you're not,
analysis, visualization,
yeah,
API access, BigQuery data warehouse. Similar, the Venn diagram between what they do is kind of overlapping, but very, very distinct tools. And I think this is in the long run, a very good idea indeed.
I just feel bad for the people that have domain.
Terrible.
Like I was looking on LinkedIn, and I do feel bad for a few people that actually are in the space. Um,
I mean, those
they
who've created courses and
yeah,
books and blogs, and already once had to reshoot everything when their first rebrand came. This is just,
pretty much.
as a content creator, my heart bleeds for them.
Yeah, I feel for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as I just hope. I mean, I hope is a very strong sentiment. I don't use Data Studio as much these days. I mostly use Python visualizations because it's simpler in Notebook. But I do hope, for the sake of people that do use Data Studio, that they're not gonna discontinue the product, because it's not a good sign, like
Mm.
um because there's a lot of people that still use it, and it's like their de facto tool. And this just gave me like this Google optimize, what was its name, it just gives me some that feeling that I had when they announced Google Optimize. So let's hope that
Mm.
it's not gonna end up on that website, killed by
Yeah.
Google. Yeah, it's still a good tool. I mean, I'm not using it that much these days, but it's still a
It
good
is very
tool.
good. Yeah,
It
it's
does the job.
and definitely was kind of groundbreaking when it came out with your kind of the
Absolutely.
canvas. Canvas was and is a very impressive things. But I think that Google just needs to kind of figure out because obviously you can use it, and many people use it as a BigQuery front end as well. So
Exactly.
there are links to how they could monetize this by introducing more and more people to Google Cloud and to data warehouses
Yeah.
without having to shill for an enterprise looker or any other kind of visualization tool. So I think that, and it is an interesting competitive market. There are Power BI, Tableau, all these different types of
Yeah.
visualization and front end tools, and Google is uniquely positioned to make this a big thing. But it is interesting, because there's also development overlap between developing the GA UI, because that is obviously an analytics interface or a reporting interface on top of GA data, um,
Allegedly, yes.
allegedly. So it is kind of interesting to follow where this logic will take us. I also wish that that this still has a long lifetime ahead of it because
Yeah,
it's
because I don't want it to
yeah.
end up, or you know what's worse, like Firebase. Like
Mm,
they haven't been doing much to Firebase in years.
mm,
I think just recently I saw some change. I haven't seen an email of a change in years. So
yeah.
as I said in many episodes ago, Firebase is my favorite Google tool because it was just good enough for the job. You could do A/B testing, you can do audiences, you can do campaigns and different things in it. You can build your app, you can store your app. Like there's so many
Mm.
things. And I just am sad about how Firebase ended up. I don't know. Yeah, but moving on to more serious conversations, which I will plead the fifth for. I will let you. I will. So yeah, we have a new we have a new change. So for all the people that've been struggling for the past years to implement consent mode, to make sure that they don't spill any type of data into Google Ads or in the Google ecosystem, we were all being very serious about turning signals off in GA4. We were, making sure that the consent for ads was, denied and sent to the Google servers. Well, something happened for all of us this week, so I'm gonna let you comment because I can't.
Yeah, so the big news is that starting June 15th, Google will decouple the way that Google Ads consumes signals from a linked GA setup. So if you have a Google Analytics account that's linked to ads, previously you had to have Google Signals enabled in GA and ad storage consent granted for Google Ads to be able to forward those signals to ads and to have ads data kind of link the user to its signed in Google account. So this linking the user to a signed in Google account is how Google's been doing it for a long time. So Google uses many signals for ads. Maybe the most best known one is the GCLID parameter in the URL. So when you click a Google ad in search, the landing page URL has the GCLID, which is basically an identifier that identifies which ad was clicked and probably has some other less transparent information embedded as well. And ad storage consent basically tells ads pixels or ad scripts, can they access this signal if it's stored in a cookie? And this signal alone is very, very strong. But obviously, when conversions happen, not every single user still has the signal available, even if they clicked an ad. So to compensate for that, Google also uses third-party cookies to check if the person who sent the conversion signal or the conversion ping is also logged into their Google account. And that's available in the third-party cookie space. So they check the google.com for sign-in cookies. And if they are, then they link those sign-in cookies to that conversion signal so that they can check whether somebody signed into that account actually saw the ad in question or clicked an ad. So it's just kind of adding more signals to a scenario where we have just signal quality being degraded year after year. And then there's enhanced conversions, which kind of remove the risk of third-party cookies and make it even more explicit that the user was signed in. The change in this case is what Google frames as a simplification, which, to be fair, is a simplification because you no longer have to look at like multiple different levels of configurations to see what ads is consuming. But the problem is that ads will now only look at the ad storage signal. There's no way to kind of prevent this signed in user decoration of that conversion stream. If ad storage consent is granted, then ads will use whatever signals are available, and there's no way to kind of separate them. And so while this is certainly a simplification, I think it's quite easy to interpret it as a privacy problem for a couple of reasons. Biggest one is obviously that not many companies know how to implement consent mode. So if they're accidentally granting ad storage too broadly, for example, or not looking at all the purposes that should control ad storage, then it's possible that on June 15th they're going to be start leaking a lot of information that Google was not supposed to receive in the first place. So number one thing, audit your consent mode setup. Make sure that ad storage, and I'm going to say, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to recommend that ad storage is denied by default, at least for EU users. Everything should be denied by default. That's a fact. We're an opt-in economy. We're not supposed to be sending signals until a user opts out. Google says that denying by default is detrimental to signal quality. Well, of course it is. That's kind of the point why you deny it by default. And then as soon as the user grants consent for targeting and for performance marketing or whatever, then you grant the ad storage signal. So that's the number one thing that you need to do before June 15th. Um,
I will. What I
yeah.
can add to that, what I can add to that is that if, of course, audit for sure. Um, but what I will say is that the campaign data is going to be definitely more incomplete for a lot of people. So there will
Mm.
be quite a lot of changes in the way campaigns are measured. Because if, let's say, the signals are not available from your consent management, if they don't reflect the user choice and so on, you a lot of people will see a very big difference in
Mm.
the data that they will use. So this is going to cause a lot of issues in terms of measurement and attribution and understanding your campaign performance. So I suspect that besides, and I'm not saying this not important, for sure, super important legal stuff, reflect user choices, talk to a lawyer, from a marketing perspective, I think it's going to be really, really difficult for people to be able to accurately measure their campaign performance, because there's so many people that try to, choosing my words, circumvent the lack of data, the lack of, signals by using different solutions. But how will those work anymore if this is the case? Because they're not
Mm.
adapted for this. And from what I understand, if I read that announcement right, Google is also working on other identifiers from June that they will add on top of this, like to enrich the type of campaign data, if I read that correctly. Now I have a question for you, because you're more into this than I am. Wasn't there like this new decision from the European Commission that we will give up on consent banners? How is this gonna play? Isn't it so coincidental? Because it seems very coincidental to me.
No, I think that's the digital omnibus
Omnibus.
that's still on the drawing board. Like, I don't think it makes any sense to, design anything against possible EU court decisions or updates to regulations, because
Yeah.
those move so slowly. It would be interesting to know what the kind of justification and why now for this particular thing. Maybe it's just because it was time. They had available resources to focus on this. Um, and this is about GA and Google Ads links in particular, because Google Signals was being used to determine what ads can receive. But I think they just want to decouple um, kind of the two collection technologies more. I think they found that there's a risk of just signal loss because people are not um, maybe they don't understand the importance of Google Signals for that ad stream or what it used to be. So right now, Google Signals is becoming a bit of a lame duck, because the only thing it does is populate demographic reports in GA. So I have a gut feeling that they want to get rid of Google Signals as a setting, because that's kind of a marginal benefit for what it actually does.
Hmm.
It's definitely more useful for ads. GA was always kind of an edge case of like, who cares about demographic reports? Genuinely, like, who cares? The data is so incomplete. But for ads, being able to kind of identify view through signals that previously weren't available could be very useful. So I don't know why right now, but it is certainly a simplification, technologically a simplification, but it's not a simplification in terms of compliance. I think this adds an additional layer there, and kind of just from a tinfoil hatty point of view, it kind of strengthens the monopolistic Google Ads, Google Search combination. It's
Hmm.
never really been. I'm sure there are a million court cases against it, but it's never really been questioned broadly. And this just kind of points the spotlight again on that, which I don't think is in Google's favor. I think they're going to get a lot of
Yeah.
unwanted attention about this,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
because the language is so like they if I read correctly on the documentation, they actually say that said ad storage denied by default at your own risk. Like, if you set it denied by default, you're risking losing signal. Well, there's an even bigger risk if you don't set it denied by default, because there's a risk of a data breach, a
Exactly.
real data breach in the EU, at least when your personal data is being leaked, simply because you took the warning of a vendor who's worried about their own signal quality rather than your compliance. So please, people, be very, very critical about this announcement. Read the documentation carefully. Follow privacy engineers on LinkedIn who talk about this and who explore, who try to get to the bottom of this, because this can be a compliance nightmare if taken to the extreme, and if I'm reading this correctly. But again, I want to, in Google's favor, it's a simplification, and simplifications are great. I think it's great that they're decoupling the technologies in this way, but but the kind of what that link is being replaced with isn't necessarily an improvement, at least in the way it's currently built.
Yeah,
But I'm
because
still kind of learning about it myself, so I might be
same.
misinterpreting things, but and I'm sure we'll know more before the June deadline.
From a marketing perspective, the way I see it is like, sure, it's simplified in the sense that I don't need Google Analytics anymore to be able
Mm,
to track this identifier, so it makes it kind of redundant. But from a technical perspective, but from a strategy perspective, I'm gonna lose a lot of data, and I already was working with less data as than I had before about my campaign performance. So now I worry a lot about, for instance, companies that have consent banners that do nothing. They just
mm,
press and they grant everything. So I think this is gonna open, unfortunately, a can of worms for a lot of businesses across the world, because people I've seen many companies that run consent mode not correctly implemented, with just a consent banner that has no effects on how this consent is being, governed in the backend. It's just a UX thing. Oh,
yeah,
refuse all. And then you get popped on the page with different
yeah,
advertisers, and you cannot even load the page because you accepted 837 partners. So uh, yeah,
yeah.
I from a marketing perspective, I think people should be cautiously positive about this, because this means that if things are not set up as they should, you will definitely work with less data, and you will have a lot of gaps in the measurement of the campaign. So I don't really see it as a good thing from a marketing perspective. But I think, as you said, like, people should follow what privacy engineers and other people that are in the space are I guess actively researching
Mm.
about this. But I don't get it. But who am I? You know.
I wanna before we move on to our guests, I wanna add a positive note about Google. They did. I have one because I was writing my newsletter today, and it's going to come out with a bunch of stuff. But there was a positive news about Google, which is that they published a Search Central blog post where they added a new spam policy against back button hijacking, which is, oh man, this is lovely. So back button hijacking is when you visit a website, and
Mm,
then when you press the back button to go back to Google search, it instead puts you in some interstitial
random.
page or something you never even saw in the first place because it was done through some clever redirects, um, or an affiliate, or they just opened a bunch of pop-ups. So this is what spam sites obviously do. So Google has added it officially to its spam policies and will start doubling down on sites that do this and penalizing them. And that's great. Like, I think this is like, I'm trying to be super critical here. I'm trying to find something problematic with this, but there's nothing. Like, this is just a wonderful like a UX dark pattern that Google is at least admitting is a problem. I don't know if they're able to eradicate it, and if there are going to be like false positives, but it's a great thing to kind of come down on. So Google search, organic search, is still doing a great job occasionally, apart from no clicks landing on websites anymore. But
We love Google in this podcast
every now and then,
every now and then. But that's fine. I mean, we're gonna with our guest today, we're gonna talk more about Google Ads, so it's gonna be interesting to hear her perspective, because that's what she does. So I'm really
yeah,
curious to hear from her. But before that, this podcast is sponsored by Simmer.
that is true.
And I have here
Yes,
from Simmer, our representative, Simo.
yes. Hello, I am the Sim of Simmer. We do online courses and check out teamsimmer.com and use the coupon code DEVIATE, that's DEVIATE, for a 10% discount off any individual course. Be also sure to check out the Technical Marketing Handbook, which is a free resource, which we will be updating this year, but more about that later. And what else? No, I think that's it.
Hold up. So Simmer is from Simon Mari, but like, you know what I was thinking about the name? I was like, because you're Finnish, you guys are more like chilling, like to simmer on things and let things, simmer before they're good.
Yes,
Because
there are multiple layers to the semantics.
that's very interesting. I
It's
thought
a
it was
play on
like,
words.
yeah, because you guys are like more, like chill,
Mm.
taking your time with things.
There's a like a, I might have mentioned this before, but there's a like a Uber Eats kind of service called Simmer. I think it's in the US. I'm not sure, but occasionally we get like support emails that, hey, I had this subscription for weekly meals. Could you please cancel it? So there's obviously like we are happily trademarked, and as far as I know, there were no conflicts. But so anybody who's listening to this podcast expecting tips about food deliveries because you saw Simmer here, you will be disappointed, as you probably have been by our newsletters and our courses.
Come on,
Yeah.
stop. Your newsletter is great, so make
No,
sure
I'm talking about the people who expect the newsletter to be about
Oh
food
yeah,
deliveries.
to be. I mean, I can jump in with that. I know a thing or two about food.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Okay, well let's get our guest in. Check teamsimmer.com, coupon code deviate for 10% off on individual course purchases, not bundles. And also check out my latest newsletter. It's about how to define a new versus. Did you check my newsletter? It was so long, bro. I don't know if you had
I
the.
did, but I already knew what you were going to write about it. So
Yeah, it was.
yeah.
It was well received, so thanks everybody. It's quite long, but I think it's gonna make you think a bit more about how you're defining this the definitions for new and existing customers. You'll find the link below. And now let's get in our guest. Welcome, Alina. And now let me see if I have my
No, that's still the
Still
punchline.
not. Wait,
You
wait.
always.
No. No.
This is very awkward.
Okay. I'm done. I'm gonna stop talking. Alina, welcome. So happy to have you today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here. Honored by the invitation.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Like people always say that, but they don't understand what they're getting into.
Exactly.
Yes, I think because Simmer and Simo played a big part in my professional journey. And yes, it's incredible to be talking to you live. So
Yeah, I remember you were a very active like participant, and now you're doing your own stuff with like Jeff and Measure You, and
yeah.
it's really impressive. I'm very happy to have been a part of that, whatever small part.
Thank you.
You see people, that's why you need to go to teamsimmer.com and get on those courses. Get on them courses.
For sure. This is not, yeah. So now this seems like a paid promotion, this whole thing that we have Alina here.
But it's not. It's really not.
It's organic in ear, based on how you're getting this. So, Alina, I know you're like freelancing right now. You have your own agency, right? It's
Yeah.
Ignite Marketing.
Yes, and it's really small. We serve small clients because we want to deliver quality work, not quantity work. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the best part, Alina is Romanian. Yay, Romania represent. You are the first Romanian guest, actually. Did we have any other Romanian guests? I don't think so. I don't remember. It's been
I
5
don't
years.
know, the Balkans all just blend into one homogeneous blob there.
And that's how you get war started. In the
This is how the Romanians attack me.
It does not. We shouldn't say that. But we were just talking in the beginning about the news that Google just landed on us about the fact that now the Google Signals part and analytics part is kind of like removed from how Google collects signals. So I was telling Simo, like, I get the simplification and the technical part of it, but from a marketing perspective, like, we're gonna work with less data. We're gonna have less data if things are not properly set up. And even if they're gonna be properly set up, I still suspect we're gonna have a big differences in how we measure campaign performance. So like, what were you thinking when that happened? Were you like, oh fuck, this is not again?
Yes, because we were once impacted by consent mode, and even now, many companies I work with or specialists I talk to don't understand the full impact of consent mode, and rightly implementing it, not just uh, bypassing it, like many do. And now I think it's getting harder and harder for the smaller businesses that have low budgets and not so much data, because modeling does not work for low budgets and low the businesses that don't have enough data. So we need to think of creative ways to come up with, I think, more um, qualitative work, and also doing thinking about the user, not just the platforms, and not just gathering more data for the sake of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really feels like between the lines that Google is admitting that they are incapable of addressing the problem that they've created in the first place. When they decided, along with all the other ad tech vendors in the past 30 years, that they need to be able to identify the individual on a row by row. Like, this is the core problem. Like, everything is about like hyper individual tracking. We need first party data. We need sign in data. We need accurate click identifiers. And it's like you said, like, I don't see how this announcement or any of the things that have happened over the past years benefits the small businesses whose problem might not be signal quality, but just the fact that they don't have enough data to fit into that mold that Google is building, and they need better tools for that, which Google doesn't seem, or any of the other players doesn't seem to be forthcoming about. So it is like the idea of brand marketing, it might be shifting quite a bit for those smaller companies who just can't trust those search results anymore, or ads results anymore, and they need to figure out better ways.
Yeah.
It makes me think a lot that when we, and maybe this is something that Alina, that you said, and I kind of like want to hear more, because when we talk about what's going on in advertising or in digital analytics, we're always thinking of this big native digital first company that has all the data, all the customers, everybody, is clapping hands and kumbayaing. But the reality is, like, majority of the companies will be small, medium, and they have a totally different setup. And I even find myself guilty of this because I think I forgot about that, because you tend to work with more, with enterprise companies. So like, maybe it would be useful if you would share more about like what are these creative ways that you're working with, with your clients, where you can provide more data to the platform that is qualitative to help them with, let's say, audience building or goals or like types of campaign awareness and retargeting and so on.
And so we start first by identifying how should we measure things. Not only so most businesses focus just on purchases, but for the majority of clients I work with, this is not enough. Is not enough data to be able to steer in the right directions. Then we need to set up in place. So we need to set up in place a combination of signals,
Mm-hmm.
and so we work with ad platforms with this combination of signals just to have enough data to steer it in the right directions. And we know that when we are looking at the data in the ad platforms, it's not the reality. It's not one by one as the a business side of things, but overall we have access to all of our clients, to their business data. So this helps us make decisions in the right direction. Um, and we can adapt fast, we can implement fast changes. This is nice because previously I also worked like when I freelanced more, I work with bigger clients with bigger budgets, and I found out that um, mm, there was a disconnect between teams, between in communication. We couldn't, even though we know what could work, like we couldn't implement the changes quickly. So I think this is an advantage for small and medium businesses, that they can implement changes more quickly and be more agile in this perspective. Communication does not take so long. We don't have so many interferences, let's say. So we use a combination of signals for the algorithm just to optimize in the right direction. And then we don't trust the exactly, like, it's not the reality what we see in the ad platforms, right? But overall, if the business is growing and it's going in the right direction, for me, it's also educating the clients, because many of them expect to see one-on-one correlation between what they see in the ad platforms, the conversion they got there, and also their backend data. So mm,
But I want to ask, and maybe a throw to Simo as well. I remember that because I'm thinking about how specific, right, can you be with the signals? And Tag Manager released like this new feature where you can see specifically like what are the parameters of the conversion. Like you can see if it's a premium subscription or if it's like a base subscription or a standard, or like the product is a premium product or a luxury product. Like, is that something that you use? Because Simo, I haven't heard nobody talk about that much. Because I was reading and I saw that Google Tag Manager dropped something that basically helps your conversion tracking. So now you can send custom events parameter with Google to Google Ads, but without developer work, which I also find that quite interesting in tandem with the signals. Like I want some conspiracy theory type of tinfoil stuff, because if like so many things can happen now in Google Ads without analytics, maybe without developer working Google Tag Manager. So it's kind of like the ads are going working on their own without, they just collect data. Just I'm trying not to get fired. I love Google, but yeah, just my question. So you use that new feature from Google Tag Manager now with your clients?
I think you are talking about sending custom parameters,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, we use it, and we also use it just for dynamic remarketing and so on. So in Google Ads, you can use like imported conversions from GA4, or you can use a native Google Ads conversion tracking. We usually use a native Google Ads conversion tracking, and
Mhm.
also just import conversions from GA4 to have like a
Yeah.
backup and compare.
Yeah, I don't think this is food for conspiracies, because what they just did in GTM was they unified it with how GTAG works. So GTAG always had the feature of adding custom parameters, but for some obscure reason, GTM never had that UI.
Yeah.
So now they have it. But good try.
You see, I'm here trying to link things up. Like I'm also, as we
No, that's
spoke,
very good.
as we spoke about in the intro, like I just want to understand why this now. Why is this happening now? What is
Yeah.
this connected to? So I'm here like trying to pick up on all the threads. I should wear a tinfoil hat.
Well, it does seem like they are. Like if you look at this very broadly, it does seem that they're just giving more love to Google Ads.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it's never, in my view, it's never been shy of love. Like it's the one
Yeah.
thing that they've actually been being promoted. But it seems like they're just kind of reshaping things, and they throw words like simplification around, which we talked already, that it's a risky word to use if it comes at the cost of privacy or compliance. But in this case, I think they really screwed the pooch when they originally linked GA and Google Ads. I think that they really toyed with this monopoly accusations, and they really kind of, well, they inflamed them basically, because they you got the feeling that Google Ads was incomplete without the GA integration, and now they're kind of separating the two, which is great, but it does beg the question, like, what is the, what's the underlying purpose? Because there has to be something that's beyond simplification and privacy. There has to be a signal quality thing here.
That's what I'm here. Like, that's why I'm here trying to pull the thread, because it's just funny to me. But also it's because I love. It's because of positive feelings, nothing negative. Just want to make sure I say that in the podcast. But so I want to ask a more like I've never worked with Google Ads before, but obviously everybody uses Google Ads. So I'm mostly curious. It's like this is my curiosity as an analytics person, because I think we're a bit removed from the PPC part and the media part. So we do all this, implementation and tracking, but we don't have to deal with what happens afterwards. So I know you're kind of like in both worlds, like you're also doing the tracking implementation, but you're also doing the campaign setup, campaign optimization, and so on. So I wanted to ask, like, what are some things that you see in how analytics people implement tracking that maybe not work in Google Ads? Because I heard a lot of stories that, for instance, if you set up the tracking wrong, you might waste a lot of money in ads, and the budgets gets swept away faster. So, like, what are some of your from experience some advices on how to set up Google Ads to work better for the client, especially for small businesses that can really feel the pain?
Yeah, so I think the role for the PPC specialist shifted in the last years, and it's mandatory that you understand how the data is being collected and what you're optimizing towards. And if you cannot even test how these conversions that you're optimizing towards your campaigns are being um, triggered on a website, like you are not doing a good job, in my opinion. So you need to invest in education and also in understanding how it all works. Um, Making it separately completely, I don't think it's a good idea in the long run, because a PPC specialist that's only focused on creative and doing like text and so on will not do a good job and will ultimately be replaced by automation in the ad platforms, because all of this is just getting easier. It's getting better, even though right now it's not that great, but I think it will get better. So it's really important to understand and to be able to test at least how it all connects. Yeah. So without this knowledge, I don't know what to say. I think you should just ask for help in this case, and because there are so many resources online that you can learn, but also it's a really complicated uh, topic. It's not easy to understand, because many of and I was one of these persons that I didn't came from an marketing background or an analytics background. I learned this field on my own, and I always have the impression that I'm missing some fundamental part. um, and yeah, I think that I'm not sponsored or anything, but I think the technical marketing guide from Similar helps you understand the basics just enough to be able then to do the research on your own and go deeper in some topics that will help you in your job, because the field is very complex. You need to understand this and that and how this impacts that and so on. Because seamlessly, so little things that you do in Google Ads have different impact. And also here it's more like it's not like analytics that you don't have a budget. Here are the client's money, so it's really important to be conscious of that and do your best, like your best ability, not to lose all the money, or just because you don't know how to test, or the configuration you're not very sure about. So
yeah. There's the educational part is just so important. The obvious problem is that there's so much content, and so much of it is wrong, and that wrong content is often feeding the LLMs. So when you go to a ChatGPT and ask how this works, it gives you the completely bogus answer or hallucinates it. And the other thing is that depending on who you go for help, if you go for Google's documentation, they're of course slanted a certain way. If you go to an agency, they have other biases. So there's all these vested interests that people don't disclose. Like an agency might be guiding the business in a certain way to maximize their profit out of that exchange, and that comes at the cost of something else. So as long as we're working with a black box, it's always relying on somebody else's view. But what you said about experimentation is so important. So, and this also leads to another discussion we've had about just this, how critical thinking works today with AI, is that you have to kind of go through the problems. You have to make mistakes. You have to fail a number of times so that you develop this spidey sense that makes you sensitive to how platforms work. So intuitively, you can look at the announcement that Google made yesterday, for example, and you can see that there are certain like smoking guns there that you might not notice otherwise. So it's really important about having those experts mentoring and having those resources that are as unbiased as possible to kind of explain those things. But you hit the nail on the head when you said that there's so much information floating around that it really becomes an exercise of who you can trust, because you only have to look at like 2 or 3 different sources and you'll find that they're in conflict. So how do you know which one is right?
And also in Google Ads. So I think there is a disconnect there, because in some accounts it just triggers some errors. It says that the Google tag is not installed, that the consent mode is not, but everything is fine. So it's just false positives in there, and the clients just get triggered by that and ask, but why don't we have this message if everything is fine? And this just adds up to the confusion.
Or when Meta complains that your event match quality just suddenly dropped when you move to CAPI only setup because you no longer give it all the signals that it wants.
Exactly.
So these are the biases. Like the vendors, they might talk about an implementation problem or a diagnostic mistake, but what they're really saying is that they want more and better data. Like it's always about that. Rarely they flag a compliance issue just for the sake of compliance. They flag it because they want more data. And it's not a conspiratorial thing to say. It's a fact. Their platform's existence relies on signal quality, which has been degrading for the past 10 years quite dramatically. Which just goes on to say that this hyper individualistic tracking is just a relic of the past, and we need to start thinking of better ways to do it. Sorry for interrupting.
I will say though, back to what you were saying, Alina, and I agree with everything, is that it's very rare that the PPC specialist will also have a tracking experience and understand JavaScript and DOMs and how websites work. I think, in a way, mostly what I've seen, and maybe this is me just living in my bubble, is that the PPC specialist is mostly a strategist that understands the Google Ads interface and understands what worked for other customers, but is not really involved into the tracking, which I think, as you said, it's not a good thing, because you should understand where the data is coming from so you can spot errors, so you can spot inconsistencies, but it's quite rare. And I also think that now, with all the AI features that are happening in Google Ads or in PMax, for instance, AI Max is taking over so much the decision-making process. Do you feel like you're mostly like an AI auditor of all the stuff that AI Max is doing there, instead of actually being a specialist or a strategist? So what do you think about that?
In a sense, yes, but usually we don't adopt. We are not early adopters, let's say, because for most of my clients, they don't have like very, very big budgets.
Yes.
So we try to see how it works before jumping into fully automated features. But I think you are in a way forced to adopt some like campaigns like Performance Max, Demand Gen, and so on. The hype is very big, but you need just to test and find ways to also put guardrails with. So if you turn on AI Max, then you need to just review the search term report more often, be more, or just put scripts in place to help you in your daily work.
Yeah.
But definitely it needs guardrails around automation and AI work, because it's not always a good idea, and especially for if you are budget constrained. It can
It can
blow
go
up your
bad.
budget in 2 hours and so on. So, yeah.
But there's also like for sure, like if we're talking small medium companies that do not have budgets to invest in automation, for sure. But there's the other component of it, and the fact that clicks are not happening anymore, and it's very hard to be PPC when there's no clicks, right?
Mm.
And I'm wondering, like, how do you optimize your landing pages for them to be served by these models? Because a lot of the traffic now, and actually it's growing every day, a lot of the traffic, the percentage that comes from LLMs, that comes from AI mode, is getting higher, higher, higher. So
Mhm.
if there's no clicks, what are we doing? Like, how are we optimizing landing pages or campaigns to make sure that we get those people to, or the people get those LLMs, not people anymore, to interact with our content, so we can, be where people are searching for.
Yes, I think it really depends on the the client's infrastructure or the website, what kind of website they have, and on what platforms they are on. Some platforms like Shopify, where most of our clients have ways of dealing with this and optimizing for like AI,
Mm.
let's say, or with structured data and so on. But I think it comes back to quality,
Mhm.
to quality information, quality photos, quality product descriptions, and investing in feed optimization.
Mhm.
And yes, for most clients, it's getting more structured because many of them didn't invest in this in the first place.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like the big catch here, is because if you're small, you don't have the budgets, and you don't understand necessarily what's happening in the market or how people consume information and get to things. So if you don't invest in time, you kind of have to play the catch up game with what's happening. And
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned the feeds, because I'm very I'm very hyped for feeds lately, and Google Shopping as well. And I think with the Universal Commerce Protocol, Google Shopping and feeds are going to become so important, um, for everybody to be discovered. I have one more question for you before and it's gonna be a tricky one. So let's talk about ROAS, right? Revenue and profitability a bit. How are you able? Because I know you're saying optimize for everything, experiment. Like, that's good. We all have to experiment and optimize, but at the end of the day, it's about money. How are
Mhm.
you able? And it's a double-sided question. Like, how are you able to introduce profit bidding? How are you able to introduce different ways to be more effective with your targeting and your bidding? And maybe a
Mhm.
question, because, like, is server side still considered a luxury for like small companies, small medium companies, or is kind of like it's just a thing? Because I know you were talking about server side I saw on LinkedIn the other day.
Yeah, so I think small and medium client server side has become a necessity um, in most cases, just because we need more qualitative data and to be able to enrich data. So for most of our clients, we use tape just to implement server side because it's easier for us. And also, so they have a way to send profit. But even though you don't have enough budget for, but and here is the catch. So you need to make an analysis to see if it really makes sense and if someone can also maintain the system and understand what is behind, and work with you long term. This is why I don't implement, like I don't do one project, just set up server side for one client, because I don't think it will be fair for them on the long run if they don't understand what is in place how the data goes. If anything goes wrong, then I'm not able to be there for them, and I don't think it's feasible just to do project-based server-side implementations. For all the clients we work with long-term, because this is how we can help them also with server side, with profit tracking and so on. We are able to optimize the feed, optimize the data that comes in. But because I see a lot of project-based implementation, I'm not very into it. I've worked also in agencies where I implemented, and I saw a lot of issues long term, let's say, with doing siloed work for clients. So I think you need to have someone long term and in your team to be able to help you with enough data and with qualitative, and it's a process that takes time. So you don't do this once and then leave it. You need to upgrade it, you need to enrich it, you need to make it better. You come up with a new idea how to improve what you did before. And then you measure against it and you see if it brings value to the client or not. So
That's Simo's favorite server-side implementation, set and forget. Just let it roll there in the background.
How dare you?
Let it go there in the background. No, but that's true. I think a lot of people look at server-side as a silver bullet and just like a technical click, book, and then we're good. Let's go live. Let's go crazy. And I think you're right. It does require more thinking and requires continuous work to make sure you get the benefit. And as we talked in the last episode, sometimes client side is enough. Sometimes you don't really need
yes, for
server
sure.
side.
For
So you
sure.
first have to understand, do you really need this? Will this give you very, big benefits versus what you have right now? Because there's a lot of stuff you still can do with client side. And I know people that continue to stay on client side because they just don't need it. And that's it. Cool. Well, Alina, thank you for coming today. Please tell our listeners where they can connect with you. I know you're on the Measure You community. Like, how can people get in touch with you if they want to talk more?
Yeah, so they can go on my website, alinapopa.ro, or they can contact me on LinkedIn or in the Measure You community. I am a mentor there, and I'm really happy to be part of the community. So come join us there.
That's awesome. And yeah, Jeff has a great community with smart people like yourself, and he's always hustling. So I feel like we need to get Jeff back in the podcast, to just see what he's been up to, because Jeff's been such a chameleon of things. He's just been
So
killing
first
it.
I heard about Jeff in your podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I also wrote him that I've heard about him in the standard deviation
Oh, wow.
podcast and so on
You
when
see
I
Simo?
joined. Yes,
We need to start collecting like affiliate fees for that kind of stuff.
Message Jeff, you owe us money. Come back to the
Yeah.
podcast.
We found Alina for you. Now give us some money.
Exactly. No, but that's great. No, Jeff is awesome, and always, just a hustler, just a heavy hitter. I love Jeff. Awesome. Also, are you both speaking at Measure Summit, right? Let's give Jeff a shout. I know Measure Summit is coming, the first one. I know he's doing two now, and I think you're both
Yes.
speaking.
I'm not speaking in the spring. Hopefully I will be speaking in the fall.
Okay, well, I'll link that one too. It's a nice
Yeah.
event. I didn't sign up to speak because I saw it too late in my inbox. But it's a great event. So many amazing speakers, so many amazing topics. It's online, it's virtual, so anybody can join. Well, okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you guys next time. Thank you, Alina, for
Thank you
coming
very much.
here. And yeah,
Thanks, Alina.
I'll see you guys soon.